Wow. The most interesting thing that has happened in my ministry or my work in the past year has been the opportunity to bring the SEED program to a global scale.
Wow.
We have added programs and facilitators and advocates in Latin America, La Paz, Bolivia. We also have a growing presence in Africa, from South Africa to Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya. The
Wow.
digital approach that we take to distributing our curriculum has really just allowed it to be shared all over the world very quickly. So that's probably been the most exciting thing. Not anything we anticipated in any way either.
Yeah.
So
That's incredible. Well, hey, friends, welcome to Smart Catholics Mastermind. Today we're joined by Jon Bachura. He is the director of the Catholic Entrepreneurship and Design Experience known as SEED. Welcome, Jon. Good to have you with us.
thanks, Dominic. Glad to be here.
So we're going to hear a bit more about Jon's story and how SEED works. So Smart Catholics Mastermind is about meeting the minds and hearts of Catholic creators. They devote their time and talent to mastering their vocation and their journey so that normal people like you and I can live fuller lives faster, maybe get a little smarter. Jon, before talking about SEED, what's your story and how did you get to a point where you're working on a program like this?
Well, I was born at a very young age, Dominic.
I would
No,
never have guessed.
yeah, like for me, I feel like my journey into entrepreneurship began at the age of 10 when I hit my parents up for about $150, and they said, "What on earth for?" And of course, it was for shoes, right? My vanity. I needed a pair of Air Jordans, and my dad was like, "You don't need. I don't need to give you money. You need a job." And the miraculous thing is that it didn't stop there. That didn't end the conversation. He actually had been, without my knowing it, had been tinkering in conversation with a colleague of his at work, where his colleague and his colleague's son every day would throw newspapers at 4 o'clock in the morning. And they did this 7 days a week. They were looking for a day off. They wanted to sleep in on Saturdays. And in true entrepreneurial form, that created opportunity for my dad and I to get up every Saturday morning. And I made $10 and I loved it. I got to spend time with my dad. I was the fastest runner because it was actually a walking route, and I would run as fast as I could to get it done. And I learned a lot. And within a year and a half, my entire family, my mom, my dad, my sister, and I, we had 2 of our own 7-day-a-week paper routes. And it taught me so much about, value creation and community and knowing your neighbors. I learned how to collect accounts receivable. I learned how to pay accounts payable. I learned how to do all the financial pieces, but I also learned to create relationships with my customers. And I think that was probably one of the most formative things. And I've, in the last 15 years, have been helping high schools, middle schools, now institutions of higher education to teach entrepreneurship. And what I find is that if I survey folks that are successful entrepreneurs or that are operating businesses, either C-suite VPs or the like, they have similar experiences. They threw newspapers, they mowed lawns, they shoveled snow, they babysat kids. All of these experiences went into an early experience, an early encounter with entrepreneurship and value creation. So for me, it all started there at the ripe age of 10, and then grew into painting hot rods in high school. I had a great mentor here in my hometown of Wichita, Kansas, that kind of took me under his wing and showed me around the hot rod shop. And then by the time I was in college studying music, I learned how to book bands. I learned that I could make a 10% fee for every band that I booked. And I learned that if I had 10 of those playing on any given night, I didn't have to be a gigging musician. I could actually not even show up and still make money. And I really liked that. I liked being part of the scene and the culture of that and the creativity of that. And then after college, I worked for small businesses, mostly family owned, and I learned a lot about family dynamics and culture, entrepreneurship from a point of view of operating businesses and small businesses, and just had a great, experience with that. And it was in 2008 when I applied for a job with a nonprofit called Youth Entrepreneurs that had a curriculum. And it was through working with them for about 10 years that I encountered Catholic University of America, and they invited me to participate in the growth and the creation of the SEED program. And I've been there since, I guess that was August of 2019 that I joined the team at the Sioka Center for Principled Entrepreneurship at the Catholic University of America.
Amazing. So tell us about CEDE then. You're channeling all that energy and looks that experience with that program, and so you've built your own?
Well, I certainly didn't do it on my own. In fact, I have the great honor of serving under the tutelage of Luke Burgess, Andreas Widmer, Andrew Abella at the Bush School of Business. I've got really wonderful people that breathed this thing to life back in the summer of 2018, about a year before I got involved officially. And what I find is that in my years of helping to teach entrepreneurship, the CEDE program fills the gap of what's typically been missing. Most of the time it was in a secular setting that I was doing this work, and it felt like it was, there was always something missing. It was about, buy low, sell high, keep good records. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's an essential part of operating a business. But the missing element I learned about fireside in Colorado Springs the first time I ever met Andreas Widmer. And I knew that meeting would come. I just instinctively knew that one day I would meet him. And so I didn't do any of my own research, though I already had formulated the question, what is different about Catholic entrepreneurship? And of course, he had a ready answer for me because he's a professional and this is what he does for a living. He between smoke, puffs on his tobacco pipe around the fire pit, he said to me, Jon, it's kind of like marriage, right? Where a business exists to create, support, and reward. It's there to co-create goods and services that are truly good or truly serve, and it will reward those that are involved in bringing those goods and services to marketplace. And it will support the business long-term in the flourishing of humans and human excellence and the return on investment of the only resource that even potentially has an infinite return, and that is human beings, people, souls. So to me, that part was always missing, that co-creation with the Holy Spirit, the completing or continuing of God's work on earth. The best way, in my opinion, to love your neighbor is for them to be your customer.
Amazing. So what does the program look like let me take a step back. Who's the kind of person who really does well in taking this program, or who is the program built for?
I think as far as the build of it, a bunch of our assumptions were that this would happen in a traditional style classroom, perhaps at the junior or senior level, perhaps in a junior or senior level theology class where a student in a Catholic school has been studying Catholic social teaching for a number of years, and are the stakeholders, the teacher, the principal, the community is desirous of those students actually having some sort of application, some sort of incarnate, project that they're doing. So CEDE is very much focused on the incarnate, on discernment, contemplation around what is missing or what a person could do, and how they can live their full faith in business, in commerce, in the marketplace. And then going forward from there with a service mentality, thinking about how can I help an individual, how can I help a community through creating an enterprise, through bringing forth a product or a service. What is it that my vocation, what role am I being called to play in the marketplace, and how can I best use not only my virtue, my talent, but also my desire, the things that I want to see in the world, that are in my heart, that are missing in the world, that I could bring to bear to co-create in the world to serve others.
Wow. Beautiful. So it sounds like the program has a process of introspection as well as things like market fit and so on.
As far as especially at the high school level, entrepreneurship education programs go, we do things a little bit differently. We take a very Thomistic approach in that we literally want to begin with the end in mind. So CEDE is broken up as 12 project-based learning modules, and each module has its own project associated with it. And there's a scope and sequence that kind of follows a story arc of, we want to begin with discernment. We want to discern our vocation, our motivational drives, how God made us and our position in the world, but also where we want to be. So the very first project for module 1 is that you write your own ideal life eulogy. So you passed away at the ripe age of 87 years old. write this eulogy that someone is going to give at your funeral mass, someone that you had a major impact on. And now, if that's a little bit too, I don't know, maybe a little bit too stoic for you, and you want to maybe pull it back a little bit, that's fine. Write the retirement speech that someone will give about you, someone who was impacted throughout your career, someone that you made a difference in their life. What will they say? And we find that this focuses their mind on the contribution that they can make over a very long period of time. Young people, I find, they don't really think quantitatively about how long they plan to be on this earth. And really, they stand a chance to have 8, 9 very productive working decades. I mean, with technology and healthcare and nutrition the way it is, these kids might live 120 years. So what does it look like to work for 80 years? And what are you going to do with that productive capacity? And so right off the bat, we begin with focusing on what can you do with a life well lived. Moving on from there, module 2, we actually kind of use a systematic approach where the students actually take a motivation code assessment that actually force ranks them on the 27 basic human motivational drives. And their top 3 to top 5 is what we call their M code. And it's very enlightening because it helps you to connect with, why am I doing all this? What's inside of me that's just kind of there from my birth that doesn't change over my lifetime, that will drive me to make decisions and take action based on that. So module 1, module 2, and then module 3 are about discernment. Module 4 through module 8 are about creation, about learning about business models, learning about design, human-centered design, growth mentality, serving basic human needs, but also putting together business models, lean methodology. Storytelling is a big piece of our course. One thing we don't do, there are 2 kind of big things that we don't do in CEDE, but we can certainly help if that's something the school is desirous of, is we don't have a marketing module. We actually begin before marketing. We want to help students learn how to tell a story. We're all involved in story. In fact, we're all involved in the great story of salvation. So how do you tell about your part in a way that it compels others to want to join you on the journey that you're on? And then the other thing that we don't necessarily have a module on is finance. In fact, our students aren't necessarily encouraged to start a business. The closest they get is we encourage them to make a meal for somebody. In the Gospel of Matthew, Christ is very specific about this. He says, what you did to the least of these, you did to me. And he's got a list of businesses that you should start. He says, feed the hungry. He doesn't say the starving. He says the hungry. Well, that's everybody. So you can serve your neighbor and serve the Lord in these very basic ways. You don't have to do what I call unicorn hunting. We don't need to find the next Elon Musk. We already have one. I need a carpenter way more than I need a Tesla. I need a plumber way more than I need, someone to exactly. Like, these are basic human needs that will continue to be needed, and that those are easy places for entrepreneurship to kind of blossom. We can light that spark and breathe into it and watch it burn. So that's kind of our goal with CEDE.
Rehumanized. Yeah.
Very much so.
So are people workshopping a business plan idea, or it's like, don't even start with that. You have to start with that return to the investment in yourself, the orientation of who you are and how you approach things before you approach.
That's right. Yeah, very much about getting yourself, discerning about yourself first before you launch into anything. There are 3 basic resources in the entire universe, Dominic. There's time, there's attention, and there's money. And money is the easiest one to get. Mark my words. Getting people's time and attention is the hardest thing. And that's what business is really about. We trade time and attention for money. We trade money for time and attention. And so if you spend a lot of your front end time preparing yourself, preparing your soul, and getting into touch with what it is that God's calling you to do in the marketplace, the money will be, you'll really never even think about it. In fact, it's not your money in the end. It belongs to God. And that gives us the opportunity then to launch into a deep application of Catholic social teaching, the universal destination of goods, for example, or the way that markets bring together human beings in both solidarity and subsidiarity through decision-making, where we bring the whole world together. But then ultimately, there's a lot of kind of preconceived notions about business, the nature of business. One, most people think it's a zero-sum game. in that in order for somebody to win, somebody must lose. But actually, that's only true in sports. Just look at Target and Walmart, like two totally different customers served at different times with different needs. And they both, if I go to Target, Walmart doesn't shut down for the day. It's no big deal to them. They've got lots of other customers. And so that's what we call a positive sum game, or what you might know as a win-win solution. And we want to work on not only the concept of that, but the application of it through the modules of the SEED program. But ultimately, our goal is to help them carry that forward throughout their entire life, because the most important thing is to every interaction with a customer or a colleague, whether you're in a professional corporate setting or whether you're at the farmer's market on Saturday, you need to see every individual as they carry the image and likeness of God. That's one of the hardest things to do. I don't know about you, but I'm still working on that every single day, Dominic. Yeah. Can I see God in you? Can I? I'm really working on that. And that's, if a student takes the SEED program and comes out really seeing where they can not only see God in others, but serve God in others,
yes,
we've won.
That's fantastic. And I think you mentioned that it's available worldwide now. It's online courses, is that right? And on-demand teaching or something? How does that work? Where do people find you?
Well, yeah, it's very easy. In fact, I would love to talk with anybody that's interested in learning more. We, of course, have a website, cedeprogram.com, seedprogram.com. But also we use Google Documents to house all of our resources. It makes it so that we can share them quickly. We can I could just provide a link that links out to those documents, but it also allows for collaboration. We have all of them set up to where anyone that is able to view them can also comment or make suggestions. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't type that well, especially when other people are watching. So it's nice to have folks kind of, what is it? Grace perfects creation, right? So the grace of others breathing into it. So Google helps us to distribute those. We also have email, and setting up a scheduled time with me is very easy and free. I would love to speak with anyone that's interested in learning more. And that's how we've gotten to grow globally with SEED.
That is incredible. It's what I love about that is it's so in line with what how we think at Smart Catholics as well. Friends, if you're enjoying this interview, please do hit that like button right now. It does help more people to discover Jon's message, helps the YouTube algorithm to push this video out. This show, it's brought to you by our free online community for Catholic millennials, creators, and learners who want faithful conversations that are unafraid of doubts and questions. Together, let's get smarter. Come and check us out on smartcatholics.com. As we wrap up here, Jon, this is always my favorite question to ask people. If you had 1 minute to share a message of encouragement to Catholics everywhere, what would you want to say?
You were born for this. You were created to be an entrepreneur. Don't let the modern idea confuse you. Entrepreneurship has very little to do with business. It's about serving your neighbor through co-creation with the Holy Spirit. And you have everything you need to start today, and we can help you to get better.